Hello, welcome to Wednesday. I hope you're having a great day. It's Cherie Matheson from Big Notes Get Votes. If you haven't met me before, and this is my weekly live coaching session and Q&A. So if you have any questions, I'm going to try and keep an eye out. We're going live to YouTube, Facebook, and the Instagrams. So if you feel like you've got a little bit of a question, feel free to pop it in, and if I miss it, I'll check and I will come back and check in the comments or the DMs or whatever, wherever you're sending it to me, and make sure that I have answered it for you. Now, this whole few weeks, we've really been focusing on creating performance opportunities. I have just finished a pretty much 3-month tour with a show called Symphony, which was quite easily the best gig I think I've ever done in my life. Just absolutely amazing. And technically, I'm semi-retired from performing, and this opportunity has given me a really great chance to reflect on what goes into getting ready and what goes into making a really great performance. So aside from every September and April, when I do my 30 days of Get Gig Fit action plan to help you kind of refocus and get in the zone for getting gig fit and getting gig ready, it really showed me, it reminded me of all the things that you can do to really ensure an awesome performance every time. Firstly, get the gigs, because that's what helps you perfect or learn about yourself as a performer and get better as a performer. So this is independent to crafting your voice. I'm assuming that you've got your vocal chops up and you're in good vocal health and making sounds in the easy and most efficient way possible. And that's the goal for singing. But that's a story for another time. I'm going to focus today on my top 10 tips for my top 10 performance tips specifically for singers. And so after this live stream has gone through, what we'll do is I will pop this up into the blog with a few bonus tips. So you want to jump across to bignotesgetvotes.com/blog and you will see some bonus tips outlined. But what I wanted to kick off with was, first and foremost, I wanted to say, why do we even care? Why do we care about considering what a performance should be, or making a performance great? Well, I think that there's two reasons. The first one is that you want to have a good time. Every time you're performing, you really want to be as relaxed as possible, or in the moment, engaging and really, give your best. Have a good time, because if you're crafting and really preparing beforehand as you should be, once you hit the stage, you should be having a good time. I'll tell you some stories about how I've navigated some of these things, not necessarily having the best time, but being more focused on the performance. But then again, the next thing is the audience. They're the reason that you're there, or maybe even your fellow musicians. It's really about connecting and about relationships. So before we even get to the top 10 tips, I just want you to ask yourself, why? Well, 5 questions. 4, 5. The what, the when, where, and why of performing. I want you to think about those things first, because they sort of set the scene. They give you a bit of context as to what you can consider before you even step on stage. So as usual, I've got notes. And the first thing that I think really helps is to think about, what kind of performer are you? In advance, have a think about, are you a bit more of an Adele? Do you kind of stand there and croon? Or are you a Beyonce? Do you really factor in lots of movement into your performance? Once you've got an idea about these things, it kind of informs the other areas a little bit. I think in general with creativity that there is no right or wrong. There's convention with all sorts of things, music, singing, performing, but it really has to be about what you want. So I'm just going to throw out these ideas. You take what you want, leave what you don't. So the kind of performer that you are is a great place to start off with. Then you might want to think, well, why are you performing? And it's there's a few reasons that you might consider this. It could be because you are doing creating performance opportunities and just trying to get a bit more experience. You could be doing something a little bit more structured, like a show, like the symphony show. You might be, or a part of a big event like that. You might be a part of a musical theatre show. You might be releasing an album, or you might be opening up for another act. You might be part of a festival lineup. Like, there are so many reasons that you could be performing. But what I really want you to think about is the kind of macro and micro of it. Why are you performing? In the sense of, like, the big picture is, like I've said, testing out new music, an album release, a tour. But really the micro is the, oh my goodness, there we go. The micro is like, what do you want the audience to feel? You know, really thinking about the connection that you want to have with the audience and what you want them to walk away feeling. So if you kind of know why you're going in, like when I used to teach at Mains, which is a music school, I used to say to the students, consider what it is that you want people to feel when they walk out of the room. Do you want to take them on a journey with your music? Because that can help you to craft the flow of the set list. Do you want to be provocative? Do you want to make them feel angry? Do you want to make them feel challenged? Do you just want them to kind of disappear into the realm of musical awesomeness and just have a really great time? Maybe forget about their worries, leave whatever they've got behind them. You know, there are so many things. That's why musicians are so powerful. I call us like the superheroes of society. We come in and we help people to feel things, whether it's escaping, we're saving them, or whether we're, challenging them and making them think about things. There is, again, no right or wrong, but I'd really like you to consider having some intent as you go into your performance. Like, why am I here? What is it that I want to do? What do I want the audience to feel? On the topic of the audience, a good question to ask is, who is going to be in the audience? So this one I find really relevant, more so with, say, covers performances, because ideally, as an originals musician, you would be sure that you are the right fit for the performance that you're about to get yourself into. So if you're opening for another act, hopefully it's aligned and their audience are the kind of people that would appreciate the style of music that you're playing. For example, if you are a rock band and you open for a classical band, that's not really your ideal audience. Not saying that classical people don't like rock music, but if people are paying or making time to come to a gig and it's too far out of their genre, unless they're expecting it, like at a festival, it might be a little awkward. But more importantly, not for them, for you. So you want to make sure that you are the right fit for the gig, and you just need to do a little bit of background research into the festival, into the kind of gigs that you, or even venues that you're being booked at, to make sure that you are the right match, so that you've got the right audience in front of you, and that's just going to make it a lot easier in the get-go. The other thing that's with originals, but when it comes to covers, sometimes you could, and I was a covers musician for many years, 25 years, in fact, I guess I still am. I just don't perform that much anymore. The demographic was really important. So I would ask the client that booked me what age group is going to be there, so that I could make sure that the music that I was about to play was fitting and that they would know the songs and be able to kind of enjoy themselves. The gender balance is important as well in corporate functions, or more importantly, if you're doing outdoor festivals and things like that, are there young people? What that can do, that can help you, and when I mean young, I mean like little people, because what that can do is it can just kind of help you to shape what language you will or won't, if you know what I'm saying, utilize whilst you're performing, because you really just want the entire experience to be targeted towards everybody having a good time, and you don't want to make any parents freak out. So who you're performing to is a really, really great thing to consider and to get as much information about, regardless of whether you're originals or cover. The other thing about the other W is, when are you performing? You can craft your performance based on the time of day. So nights are a given, you're assuming. So considerations might be what you wear and how much makeup you wear, or if you wear makeup at all. Same with the daytime. If you're outside in the sun, are you going to need eye protection? Will you be able to see your iPad if you're utilizing gear or tech? Do you need a sun cover? So things like when you're performing do help to understand what kind of infrastructure you might need, whether it's through styling or actual logistics as well too. So these kind of things I think are really important to ask yourself straight away, almost to have a checklist. The what, when, where, and why of your basic performing, the overview of your performance, so that you can make some great decisions and be prepared essentially. But then once you've got that, you should be able to sort of sit back a little bit and feel like you can focus a bit more on the performance itself. Now, that is going to take me to my top 10 performance tips. And the very first one kind of is fed by all of that I've just said, the what, when, where, and why of performing. Number one tip is have confidence. Really work on feeling confident in your performance ability. That can be fed in a couple of ways. So, of course, like I just said, making sure you've got all the info that you need to, before you even get to the stage, the logistics type information. But really, is your voice feeling good? Have you done as much kind of vocal crafting that you need to do? Do you have everything that you need ready, and are you prepared? Do you know the songs? So I call this element of getting ready, my little acronym is PREP. So PREP. The 4 P's are like prepare, practice, persevere and have patience, and then play and have fun. Now, you can also, I kind of flip the switch a little bit. Oh, sorry, I'm going crazy. P stands for prepare. R stands for rehearsal practice, obviously. It stands for engage or exercise. So if you're practicing, you can also use these prep steps as well. And then P is play or perform. So those 4 P's kind of cover all of it. But I put it in a little acronym called PREP. That's right, just so I can remember it, or not, as the case may be, as I just did then. But I'm actually going to go a little bit deeper into those prep steps next week in the weekly live coaching session, because I think it can be expanded, and I'll talk to you about practice plans and effective ways of rehearsing, that kind of stuff. But for the sake of today's top 10 tips, performance tips for singers, that is number 1. Get your ducks in a row so that you feel confident, and that will translate better than anything in the whole wide world. Number 2 tip is to consider that the performance starts before you get on stage. So what I want you to consider is like literally before you've even set foot on stage, get in performance mode. And that can mean a couple of things. When you're an originals artist, quite often what happens is you might get asked to do interviews or meet and greets before your performance. So from a voice perspective, you want to be warmed up quite a bit before you have to do those elements, those tasks. And then also at the end of the performance, you might have to go and do signings or talk to people. So I really want you to consider that not only are you performing maybe 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after, just factor all of that into the big picture of how much time you're actually going to be utilizing your voice, or you're going to actually be performing, so that you can conserve some energy. Quite often the singers I work with, they will come along to the performance and not consider the fact that they're going to have to do bits and bobs before they get on stage, like meet and greets, and then the same with afterwards. And they can tire their voices out. They get quite fatigued because they're sort of mentally not in performance mode. So even if you're not an originals artist and doing that, consider just taking, the 10 seconds before you get on stage, before the audience can see you, to kind of get into your gig mode. And that will help you to really settle into what you're doing. And then if you are an originals artist and you need to factor in a little bit more time as well for both mental focus and voice focus, incorporate the time that is expected of you before and after your performance to meet and greet or whatever, factor that in. Okay, so that's tip number 2. Start performing before you set foot on stage. Now, when you are on stage, one of the biggest tools that you've got as a performer are your eyes. So you really want to make sure that you are making eye contact, or if that's a little awkward, because it can be, that you are focusing your line of sight either to people's foreheads or to the back of the room, like the exit sign that's usually right at the top of a doorway. And you can utilize that. So I'm kind of doing it now. I've got 2 cameras, and it sort of looks like I'm looking directly into the camera, but I'm just looking over the top of it. So it gives that sense that you're connecting with the audience, but without kind of having to stare people down the barrel of their eyeballs. I have heard of styles of music where people put their back to the audience. And if that's your shtick, I can't actually remember the name of it, where you just kind of face your band and you get onto it. But if that's your shtick, do it. But you would know that that is what your audience are expecting, or that they're not concerned with the fact that you're not front and center and looking at them and engaging with them. I look at all performance like a conversation. So it's that thing of, having someone just talk at you and not really even look at you or pause to kind of take in what you're saying or listen to what you're doing and maybe react. A great performer can do that on the fly and isn't fazed by heckling or, having to speak in between songs, or feeling comfortable with not speaking in between songs. All of that stuff you should be thinking about before you get on stage, and it's a part of knowing who your audience are and knowing the experience that you would like your audience to have. Okay, so once you're on that stage, you gotta own it, and this is more than just like a performance. Own it, as in whether you're dancing or doing whatever. It is actually about knowing where things are on the stage. Quite often, working with musicians or as a singer, if you're unsure of leads and cables, you don't even set foot on stage until you perform, it can be really challenging. You're having to move the mic stand out the way and position yourself and get things happening, which detracts from you being able to engage and deliver an amazing performance. So I want you, if you can, to just take a few seconds. Even if you're at a festival and you've got like a 10-second line check, just have a look at your surrounding. Move things before you start performing. Make sure you've got your water within arm's reach, your towel, whatever it is that you need. Is your strap and your mic stand set? One of the great tips that I've been taught is to, wear my heels to sound check, or the shoes I'm going to wear, so that I can have the mic stand at the right height before I get up on stage and perform, because there's nothing worse than sort of walking on and having done a sound check in your jandals, and then you're having to, set the microphone stand when you get on. So own the stage from a performance perspective, but also just knowing where everything is. Is your guitarist going to be moving back and forth? Are his pedals set up in the way of the entry and the exit? Figure out what you need to feel comfortable on the stage and own that space. Okay, so when it comes to actually, and that's even a side note, is even like if you're dancing or doing choreography, you'll want to be able to mark out those spaces in advance. With the symphony show, it was so organized that they actually timed from venue to venue how long it would take us to walk up on stage to hit our mark, so that they could give the DJ the right cue, and it was done on a screen in front of him. It's so considered and so well thought out. All the best performances always are. It looks like magic for the audience, seamless, but the work that goes on off stage is incredible. And it does help you to have a good time. It might feel a bit contrived, or if you've not performed before, you want kind of be a bit spontaneous. The thing to think about is that when all the foundations are in place, that's the time that you can be super spontaneous and musical, because you're not having to worry about the basics. One of the other things, so tip 4 was owning the stage. Tip 5 is posture. So I mean this as well. This is a little bit more performance focused and owning the stage, but really posturing can be so important in how you claim the space that's in front of you. Now, not only from a vocal perspective with anchoring, but also just really owning the space and being mindful of where you are on the stage. So in the symphony show, the conductor and the orchestra, which are hands down the stars of the show, I was just there along for the ride. They are front and center, and the conductor is right in the middle. So I would be really mindful to position myself either to his right or left, his left, when he's facing the orchestra, not only just to sort of visually balance things out, but also so that I could see his cues. I tend to posture or move around the stage based on where I am in the song. So I don't mind hitting dead center for a chorus and then maybe moving to the sides for a verse, because especially if it's a big stage, you want to be able to move across to the other side of the audience, the stage, and connect with the audience that are maybe over there. For some of the shows, I did stand just to the side, but that was because I was looking for cues that he was giving me. And so that in itself, again, is important. But posturing is not just shoulders back and neutral alignment, although I'm down with that. It is literally how you position yourself on stage, line of sight, and the body language that you like. I like the open hand thing. I quite like that posture. And then that moves very nicely onto the point number 6, which is gesturing. This is a really strange one, and this is one where I think people who are starting out tend to feel the need to act out the lyrics a little bit if they're awkward or not sure of what they're doing. So, I mean, I'm going to give you like an over-exaggerated extreme, but it's like, if the song says, I really love you and I'm crying for you, an over-exaggeration would be, I really love you and I'm crying for you. I think that, in my opinion, that is too much. I think your voice can act it out. Does sometimes depend on what the size of the stage is, but generally the rule of thumb is think, gesture, sing. Or if you want to practice while you're speaking, think, gesture, and speak. If you're anticipating and if you're thinking, the sky is blue, the sky is blue, it's kind of a bit awkward. So try to make your gesturing as natural as possible and do take a minute to have a think about it. So as I mentioned, I really loved the open arm gesturing. And for me, that was something, it makes me feel like I'm kind of giving the audience a hug. So that for me is I'm open, I'm owning my space. It's great for posturing and for anchoring because I was doing a few high notes. And that was something that I consciously chose to do. And I like to smile as well while I'm performing. There are going to be a ton more tips fleshed out on the Big Notes Get Votes blog, which you can find on bignotesgetvotes.com/blog, and probably in a few hours. Let's jump on though. Number 7, research. This is one of my favorite things. It's like, I like to watch other performers and to borrow from some of the things that they do. So my favorite performers are Beyonce. I love watching Celine Dion perform. That's where I get my she's like, I love you. But I love that sense of owning the space that she does. She uses a lot of arm movement, and she's very strong, doesn't do a ton of dance moves, quite static. So that's where I researched some of my performance tips of how I would like to posture, gesture, own the stage space. So I recommend you do the same. Look to the people that you really love, think their performances are great, and borrow a little bit of what they're doing. Okay, we've got 3 more tips. Number 8 is microphone technique. It's a really good idea to get comfortable with utilizing your tools that you have. So whether it's the mic stand, which can be a prop that you can utilize as well, having great mic technique is really important. And it can be a part of the performance. Beyonce is amazing to watch for that. She does a bit of, all of that But really, for the primary reason that you want to make sure that you're giving the sound engineer, shout out to Nick Madron who did the sound on Symphony, he's amazing, a really great signal. You want to be sure to not cup the grill because that can definitely impact the sound. So holding it comfortably down, and really next level to that is finding the right microphone for your voice if you are in a position to utilize your own microphone. Sometimes on big shows, you just go with the RF, the wireless mic, and they're usually great quality and it will give you a good signal. Side note to that is that it is really important to be aware of what works for you. So whether it's in-ear monitors, whether it's on-stage monitoring, have a bit of time to practice with those things before if you're unfamiliar. In-ears are a great idea, and if you're starting out in your career, I highly recommend investing in a pair of custom ears. I've only just got mine, and they're not even custom. But I think it's a great idea, and it's something that most performers should look at getting. It is an investment, so save up your moolah and go and get some custom ears done, or just start off by jumping to a place like the Rock Shop and just getting your own so that you can practice wearing them when you're listening to music, just so that you're getting used to the feeling and the sensation of utilizing them. Same with onstage monitoring. Feel free to ask to have it moved, the monitoring moved based on where you like your mic stand or where you like to stand, or in relation to the entire stage. On that note, sound production can really help or hinder a performance. So it helps if you've got some basic language, some base understanding of acoustics, or at least a very nice manner with your sound person. I always call the sound engineer the fifth member of the band, because without them, you're nothing. And after a while, someone like Nick Madron, who's the most phenomenal sound engineer who I've been lucky enough for years, he will start to notice, because he's so attuned, he's so good. He'll know the show, and he'll know where he can play with things. So he'll float your voice a little bit, or he'll just really become a part of the performance. The same with your monitor team. If you're lucky enough to have a monitors engineer, and we have great ones on the Symphony show as well, you do want to be able to communicate effectively with love, kindness, and respect, because they're usually there a lot longer than you are. They're the first to arrive and the last to leave. So not only are they logistically laying it down, they're also part of the creative process, and they need mad props, lots of love, and you need to come with your with your bits and bobs together. Okay, 2 more points, and then that's it, and you can grab any other bonus tips from the blog post. Number 9 is costuming. Now, this one is really important, because if you've done all this hard work and on the music, the visual representation of your performance is another tool that you can utilize to connect with. In the Symphony show recently, I wore a jumpsuit. I've never worn a jumpsuit before, but for some reason in my head, I was like, oh yeah, these songs and the grandeur of the stage and everything, and a big block color is going to work really well to help get that kind of party dance vibe thing happening. And so I made a choice, and it worked really well. It looked great in photos, looked great on stage, and also our Symphony family, have the most amazing lighting and visual team. Incredible. So they really, whether it was intentional or not, but it really worked well to have my costume be a prop to my performance. And I felt great in it. And that's another key. Shoes, frocks, or whatever you're going to be wearing, make sure it fits well, isn't constricting you, and that's from a sort of postural vocal perspective, that you feel good in what you're wearing, because that can help you to really deliver the story or help to connect with the audience and make sure you're feeling good. And that is tip number 10. Have a good time. Have fun. Because I think that's something that really makes a difference to the performance. And I had a really interesting time on the Symphony show, because I had so many moving there were so many variables that it wasn't that I didn't have fun, but it was the most focused that I was. So I had to turn my focus levels up a little bit higher than my fun levels until certain points in the song or in the show where I could kind of relax and get my groove on a little bit. And I prefer that. Like, that makes me have a good time as if I'm hitting my mark. So fun is relative based on how much preparation you've done, I think. So you tend to be able to have more fun based on how prepared you are. And that's basically all of those 10 steps. And then the 4 W's that I mentioned at the beginning, having those in place really will guarantee an amazing performance. And I did have a great time. I was just counting like I've never counted before to make sure I was in the right place. Because in a show like Symphony, you have an orchestra. There are like 60 people and a conductor who's reining them in. I was like, you know what? I'm one person. I need to get my shiz together and turn up as prepared as I could be so that they could be the stars of the show and do what they needed to do. And I would just be like, I was like the cherry, hopefully, on the top, you know? That was my perspective going into this show. So that was my why. And I knew that the audience were there to have a really great time. So I just wanted to hit the mark and hold the space as well as I could for everybody that was involved. And it was an amazing time because of it. So quickly to recap, the 10 tips. Start off with the 4 W's, the what, when, where, why of performing. Get those in your mind, that big picture, and that then informs these top 10 tips. Number 1, confidence, and that's the prep steps, which is going to be next week's topic. Number 2, start performing before you get on stage, or factor in the entire time that you're going to be on as an artist, whether it's 30 minutes before to 30 minutes after. Factor that in and allow your mental and your performance energy to adapt to that. Number 3, use eye contact. Number 4, own the stage. Number 5, posture. Number 6, be mindful and intent. Have great intent with your gestures. Number 7, do a bit of research and find the performances that you like for inspiration. Number 8, get that mic technique happening and working with your sound production, your sound team. Number 9, costuming. Think about what you're going to wear, or shoes and all of that jizzle jazzle. And then lastly, put it all together and have a good time. So I hope you found these tips helpful. If you have questions, fire them at me and I will do my very best to answer them. But we'll be back here next Wednesday at 2 o'clock again to go through and deep dive a little bit into those prep steps, into what it takes to get vocally ready in particular to get on stage and perform. So I hope you enjoyed that. Have a great day, and thank you for coming along if you've stuck in for the ride, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good day. Bye.